Hola estudiantes, so I'm making this video to go over how to go through the material on Blackboard along with the textbook linked to from Blackboard and the learning logs, which are also linked to from Blackboard, but then you need to remember to open them each time you practice Spanish to keep on track with things. Hopefully there isn't too much background noise. Some students are very excited to be back this semester, so they're chatting out in the hall. But hopefully you can still hear me okay. So I'm looking at Blackboard and the week one folder, and it gives you the dates, and it just lists everything that's in here to help you find which folder something is in if you need to go back to it later in the semester. I linked to the textbook, but I link to each specific page as we get there. I wanted you to read the introduction so you know how I approach Spanish. This is information about how to add the Spanish keyboard. There are lots of different ways to type the accent marks, upside down question marks in Spanish. This is the way I use. It doesn't matter which way you use, but I can't explain the other ones to you because I'm not familiar with them, but this is the one I use. So then I have let's get started on with lesson one. And so if you click there, just make it says open lessons 1 and 2 in the learning log in the Google Classroom. So I click on that. Okay, it's not changing pages, so let me go change to the correct page. Okay, so I open that. It doesn't work exactly the same on your end. Unfortunately, I can't log into Google Classroom as a student because I'm the instructor. So see, is it showing the correct page now? It's showing 2 pages. Let me get rid of this one. Okay. So then I need to change pages again. Sorry, the recorder makes me change page separately each time. Okay, so here's your learning log for lessons 1 and 2. And what I do is I list the topics objectives you're responsible for in these lessons. And I've used I can statements. So it says, I can use Spanish greetings and leave takings with my instructor and classmates and also outside of class. So in order to meet this objective, you want to be able to do that. And I list several different links you can use to practice those things. And you will not be able to use all of the links I list on every learning log. That is way too much. I list a lot so that you can make choices because we all learn differently. There is no reason for you to learn exactly the way I would prefer to learn. We're all different. So these give you choices, allow you to experiment with different things, and then make your own decisions. But use at least 2. So it says for each topic, list at least 2 activities you did in order to make the I can statement true. If you believe the statement is already true for you, please do 2 exercises to verify this. So even if you already know Spanish, even at a basic level, you can learn something new, how something's said differently in a different region. You can always learn something else. So do at least 2 to make sure you are good and try to expand your knowledge. We don't want to stay where we are with our knowledge in a college class. We always want to grow from that. It's not just about checking off a box. It's about engaging with things and growing from where we are. So, let's see, you may need more than 2 exercises for some of the topics. So if you're a complete beginner, there are most likely some topics where you will need more than 2 exercises. It just depends on what it is. So you're going to do as many as you need until you're confident that you know the material well enough to reach the stated objective and to get the grade you would like on the lesson test. So you're using this learning log along with your textbook for practice. It includes links to helpful resources and self-check quizzes. You may also practice using other methods you find. You don't have to stick to these. A lot of times students know the newest apps. So if you find something you really love, that's perfectly fine. And also when you share it here with me, then hopefully I stay on top of things to where I can add it for other people on future learning logs, although that probably won't show up this semester because I think I've already made them all available, but I'll add them in the future. Let's just make sure that you use this along with the textbook so you know what we are focusing on for each topic. So you want to use all three of these things, the textbook, Blackboard, and the learning log. And again, Blackboard links to the textbook and to the learning log. So once I've practiced, like if I use Duolingo and things like Duolingo, the problem with Duolingo, well, one problem, everything it has its advantages and disadvantages, but Duolingo doesn't let me assign specific things to you. So you won't necessarily be working on the same topic that we're working on. So pay attention to that. You need to practice things that help you with this topic. But Duolingo can do that. It just depends on where you are in lessons there and lessons here. So if I use Duolingo, I can say I use Duolingo and practiced with a friend. Okay. So those are two different things. And if I feel good about it, I go to the next one. And so I just type in what I did to practice here. This will automatically save for you. You don't have to worry about saving. And then whenever you come back to it in Google Classroom, you can add to it. And then if you have questions about it on your end, there's something over to the right that says ask your instructor a question. If you type the question there, I get it in my email immediately and it tells me what lesson it's about and all of that. You can also like highlight something and then add a comment, and I'll see that when you submit your work. Make sure to submit when you're done. Make sure you do this before you take the lesson test because you obviously want to practice before you test yourself over it. These learning logs altogether are worth 20% of your grade. That's quite high. That helps your grade. I know some students see this as busy work because you're just telling me what you did to practice, but it shouldn't be busy work because you should be actually doing the practices. And I trust that the great majority of students are. So if you do this, it will help you with your grade in two ways. Firstly, it's 20% that you get for just completing this. And secondly, you're practicing what you need to do to reach your ICANN objectives. And so then you'll do better on the test. And then part one is grammar and vocab. Part two has you practice all of the skills: listening, speaking, reading, writing, and culture. So listening, 5 activities for the lesson. I have listening activities geared for the very beginner. If you're past that, you can listen to a song. You can listen to a radio show. You can watch a TV commercial. If you listen to an entire program, that can count for all 5 activities, if it's an hour-long program. I should put the amount of time I want you to listen there, but I didn't do that. But yeah, if it's super long, then that can count for more than one activity. But if you're a complete beginner, you'll want to start with just sounds, like sounds of the vowels and sounds of the consonants, which I linked to here. Speaking, make sure you write down what you did to practice, which can be just what you repeating what you hear in the listening activities. That's perfectly fine. If you're beyond that, you can listen to like a Duolingo podcast, listen to a sentence, pause it, repeat. And it has the script written for you so you can read it. And if you're a native speaker, if you speak Spanish at home, you can be listening for differences in accent between different countries and different regions and just starting to notice that. And your accent is fine the way it is. It's not about changing it. It's just about becoming more aware of differences between different areas. If you're beginning Spanish, there's something I just learned called shadowing, and I learned it with Japanese, but I think it can really help. I don't understand how it's helping, but I really feel like it makes some kind of different connection in your brain that allows you to think, oh, I can pronounce this. It's called shadowing. So you press play on something and you can listen to the whole thing first, like a word, a phrase, or sentence. And then you press play again. And as soon as that person starts talking, you start talking right after them. You don't let them finish first. They start and you go right after them. So it's like you're just a little bit behind them. And for some reason, I think it makes a connection in your brain that you can do what they're doing. But I think it's helpful. Reading at least one paragraph in Spanish. And I put this because it's also helping you practice conjugations here. And just write down what you did. You don't have to put the work there. Writing, you do need to do the writing here so I can correct it for you. And what I recommend is you get this in, a day or two before you take the test and wait till you get feedback before you take the test. That way, if you made any errors, you can see what they are before taking the test. Culture, you can write this in English or Spanish right now, and you are commenting on anything about Hispanic culture. I gave you lots of options. You don't have to use these. I just didn't want you to start like from zero and not know what to look at. And if you are of Hispanic culture, try to expand your knowledge in some way. So don't just stick to what you know, but you can comment on something you already know, but make sure you really thoughtfully reflect upon it. And so you're growing in what does this really mean to me and other people? How does it connect to other cultures? How does it connect to other aspects of my culture? If I'm, kind of have a culture of mestizaje, of hybrid culture, or just what I notice that's different in other cultures around me, that kind of thing. Make sure you put your reaction to it. How do you feel about this cultural thing? How can it be helpful in society? How is it not helpful? We all are allowed to have our own reactions and opinions, and that's perfectly normal and fine. Like, for example, if you're from Spain, people think of bullfighting as a part of their culture, but there are lots of people who are from there who protest against it. So even inside your own culture, people have different viewpoints, and that's normal and fine and expected. Okay, so there's the learning log, and the way you use it with the textbook and everything. Well, let's take the next step in Blackboard. Let me see. Go back to sharing that page. Okay, so this kind of explains how to work through them together, and I'll let you read over that, basically what I said, but maybe in a little bit different words. You have a discussion here, and it sells the objectives. I can introduce myself in Spanish, and it says to first read over this page in the book. That's very important. If you already know Spanish, you probably wouldn't need this page, but in future pages you will, because there are lots of ways to accomplish a task in Spanish. But I want you to be working on the task in a specific way, not because it's more correct, not because it's better. That may not be the case. It's just because, especially for beginners, we want to stick with one or two things at a time and not have things way above people's level, because for practice purposes, it makes more sense. And I want you to become conscious of what you're being asked to do at a specific time. So again, becoming conscious of the language. So the reason why it's so important to read over this in the textbook, let's see, is because as a beginner, I have listening here. Here it just says listen through minute 1. It's giving you an example of what you're going to be doing. Then it explains some of the grammar, has a cultural note. It checks your understanding of the grammar or the vocabulary. Then it has another conversation. This is an example for you to use when you introduce yourself. So you have a model for you. Another example, telling where you're from. And then the communicative activity, that's what we do in the discussion board or in class, virtually or face-to-face, if you decide on that option. So there's all this material that comes before the communicative activity. So it's really important that you look at that first, and then you can videotape yourself and upload it in the discussion board post so we can get to know each other in Spanish. And someone's already done that, so that's great. Okay, so I'll get to that soon. So you're going through this in order. You don't want to go directly to a discussion board post or any other assignment from the calendar or the grade book unless you already have gone through everything in the content folder beforehand and you're just coming back to that. You already knew it was due. Other than that, make sure you're working through the content folder. So you can see we have several links for reading before we get to the new discussion board post. We have like 5 pages or so. And so you want to look through all of those until you get to this, and then follow the models that were given to you. I linked to it again in this discussion board post, but I may not have always done that because I expect you to be working through the content. But, I did link through it there. No. Okay, I forgot to change the page from Blackboard to Blackboard again. Oh, that's frustrating. I wish it would just go with the page I was looking at. But here, let me go back. Let me see if this will work. Going back. Yeah, so I was just showing how we want to be working through. So we came back to the discussion. And then after we read this page in the textbook, we're going to upload our video. And then I just showed how there are several links between discussions sometimes. So you need to go through those in the book before you do the next discussion. And I link to the page there, but I don't always do that because I do expect you to be working through the content. And this was dealing with the verb ser and adjectives. So it's important that even if you know how to speak Spanish, you're like, oh, okay, this is how I'm describing myself using the verb ser because that's what everyone's practicing right now. They're beginners. So I kind of want to stick to that instead of making my speech really advanced. If you're turning something in just for me, you can go above this level. That's perfectly fine. But for other students' sake, so that we're kind of on the same level in our practices to begin with. If you want to add an extra one above that level, that's fine. But I do want students to start being able to understand, and it's difficult if you speak at your regular level for everything. I hope that makes sense. So you can see you're using Blackboard. So, for example, the verb ser, we have this discussion board topic, and we are also working with the textbook. Let me see if we'll bring that up too. I can share several things at one time. So we're looking at the textbook, and also this is in the learning log. Let me pull that up. Oh, I already had that. So share another page, which is learning log. But I wanted to share the actual learning log, not just the link. Okay, so there's your learning log. We scrolled down and it said, here, I can conjugate the verb ser to match with the subject, and then I can use descriptive adjectives to describe myself. So those 2 topics go with what we're seeing in the textbook, which is what we're practicing in the discussion board. All of those 3 things working together help you reach your objective. Okay, so let me know if you have any questions. I hope this helps. Let me know if you need anything else. See ya.